It's Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. It's a brand new year, but that means it's also time for the same old knee jerks. That's the Knee Jerks podcast with Eno, Nick, and Big Al. I'm the Big Al of the equation, Al Beaton, longtime Detroit-based podcaster and blogger. Joining me, as always, to talk all things Detroit sports and whatever else crosses their mind is, first off, Nick Milanovich. Nick, how's things? How's things on the left coast?
Not too bad. We had a nice, typical gray day here out in Seattle, but I don't care. My Wolverines won, and so I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm sure you're still that game was one long roller coaster stress test, all built in like 4 hours. That was something else. Obviously, we're going to talk about that. So yeah, but that last drive. Well, we'll talk about all that. And speaking of that, we have our resident EMU Eagle on the panel here, and that would be Greg Eno. I know you prefer.
Did you say Eagle? Did you say Eagle?
Yes, I said Eagle.
I think I'm a Huron. I'm a Huron.
A Huron, yes, you're right. Good thing I almost called you a Chippewa. So,
well, after that bowl
be an insult, yeah.
After that bowl
our own EMU Huron, and that would be Greg Eno of the famous, whatever you want to call it, Greg Eno Substack, which we all highly recommend you subscribe to. Greg, what's up?
Well, after that bowl performance by my alma mater, maybe I should be a Chippewa. I mean, that was brutal. We're still trying to get Coach Creighton on. I'm not sure if he wants to be on after that debacle, but we're going to still try to get him to come on the show. We're a friend of his, and he's a friend of ours, so hopefully it'll work out. I am Greg Eno from my gregeno.substack.com blog. Please subscribe. I come into your inbox every Monday. Most recently, actually, was Tuesday yesterday because it was Monday yesterday. Yeah, because even though it was a holiday, I did a piece on the debacle that was in Texas with the Lions game and kind of called out the NFL for not holding up their end of the bargain when it comes to integrity. We're going to get into a lot of that, of course, later on in this program. Upcoming guests, the aforementioned Chris Creighton, head coach of Eastern Michigan football. We hope to get on sometime soon, either January 16th or maybe sometime in February, depending on how his recruiting schedule goes. Siddy Hall, our resident NBA expert. Siddy will be here January 30th, he tells me, so that'll be fun. Now that the Pistons have broken the 28-game losing streak, who knows how many more games in a row they will have lost by the time we have Siddy back on January 30th, probably another 15, 16 games at that point, but we'll see. But before we get to any of the stuff that Al's got on his on the agenda for tonight, we're going to play a little game that we like to call Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro? Everybody knows how we play this game right now. I'll give Al and Nick a clue or two or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if one of those guys can guess that person within the first two clues, he'll receive, you've heard of an autographed photograph. Well, they will receive a photographed autograph. So that's what's at stake here today, guys.
So the prize is a bad pun.
This person, guys, made his name in the world of baseball. He was born on this date in 1963, so he's 61 years old today. He was very, very good at his craft, and started out in baseball. Like I said, started out in one capacity and ended up becoming quite a specialist. I'll leave it at that.
Baseball player, born in 62.
63.
Became a specialist.
Yeah. Started out as a regular.
Dennis Eckersley.
No.
Yeah, I was going to guess that, so you beat me to that one. So
that's a good.
I wanted that autograph.
Oh shoot! Sorry.
Started out as in one capacity and ended up becoming quite a specialist in another capacity, and some think he should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not.
Yeah. So obviously it was either someone who changed positions or went from pitching to hitting or vice versa. God, Eckersley is the first one that really comes to mind. Or that's where he could go from starting to closing. That's the other, or closing to starter. I don't know, Bruce Sutter. Nope. Yeah, I think he's dead anyway, if I remember right. So
yeah, it's
anyway.
Bruce,
yeah, exactly. So all right, well, you stumped us on the first one, Greg. So
That's the idea.
Wait and see. Yes. But we want to get it on the first one. Come on.
Yeah,
so, all
sometimes you get
right.
it.
Yeah. Okay, with that, let's hit the ground running here. We have a lot to cover. There's been a lot going on over the past couple of weeks as we start the new year. Obviously, the Lions made the playoffs since we last talked, and there was also a very controversial loss, a very Lions-esque loss that we'll talk about, and some of the fallout. University of Michigan played a big game yesterday, as Nick was so happy to remind us. They're in the college football championship game, so we'll touch on what's going on with Jim Harbaugh, and maybe we'll touch a little bit on what's going on in football because Kirby Smart had some interesting things to say about the status of bowl games after what happened with Florida State. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, the Wings are having some major issues right now, and the Pistons, well, if we get to them, we'll probably talk more about Tom Gores than anything else, about his how great they're doing, except when it comes to winning. So, but with that, like I said, we don't want to step on Siddy Hall's toes. I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say on our next show about the Pistons. Anyway, let's get to this. So since we last spoke, we're talking about a playoff team. Lions clinched the NFC North of a 30-24 road victory over the Vikings 2 weeks ago. Close game. It took some, the Vikings threw for a shit ton of yards, but also threw a shit ton of interceptions. And obviously the big one is Ife Melifonwu with the big interception at the end of the game to shut down the Vikings' final drive. First division crown for the Lions since 1993 when they won the no longer in existence NFC Central. So we can finally put to rest the joke that the Buccaneers had more recently won the Lions division than the Lions themselves. But with that out of the way, then Saturday night, national television, the Monday Night Football on Saturday, the Lions lost to the Cowboys 2019, an extremely controversial but typical of the Lions, so at least if you're a Lions fan, you know what I'm talking about, fashion. Ref confusion on which offensive lineman reported as an eligible receiver led to a tackle-eligible play, draw a flag, nullifying a 2-point conversion, which would have given the Lions a 1-point lead with 23 seconds left. Then, obviously, Dan Campbell doubled down on that and ended up going for 3 times total. We'll talk into his thoughts about that and what we think about that. It was a heartbreaking loss. It was awful. But I think most of the nation fell on the Lions side, saying they got screwed again. But that loss left the Lions at 11-5, pretty much all but guaranteed them the number 3 seed. They need a lot of stuff to fall into place to have any chance at the 2, which likely won't happen. So their opponent, more than likely, in a couple of weeks, will be either the Rams or the Packers. Oh God, I can't take a week of Matthew Stafford talk if the Rams are the team coming to town. So on this Sunday, they play the now eliminated from the playoffs Vikings in a pretty much a meaningless game. Motor City Dan Campbell says he still plans on playing his starters. We'll see how long that lasts, depending on how the game goes. So I guess I'll start with you, Nick. They're a playoff team, but and they played, I think, better than everybody thought they would Saturday night, but it still ended up with a controversial loss. Thoughts?
So I didn't see a lot of the game because that game was shown. It started like 5 p.m. my time. So
that's right.
I did catch some of it. You know how exciting it gets here on Saturday nights at my age. But it was New Year's weekend. So honestly, it is kind of a typical Lions scenario that they just they play well, but some stupid thing happens. I hate to call it SOL because honestly, the Lions played well from what I could tell.
Yes.
They didn't, it wasn't one of these Jared Goff 4 interception games and a bunch of other dumb penalties and all this other stuff. So, but I think there was more to it at the end of the game. From everything I've heard, I would point it straight at the ref. Just really, it'd be polite to say he blew it. That was just like dumb. And from what I've seen, they've doubled down on it. The NFL is sort of protecting the ref on this one. So, And at the same time, fuck it. Who cares? They're in the playoffs. They're going to get whatever seed they get. They're going to have at least one home game. Let's focus on that and also beat the snot out of the Vikings. I don't like the Vikings for some reason. Never did. And but yeah, it just, and I think Dan Campbell, from what I've seen, is taking that sort of coming into the playoffs, especially, a little pissy. Why not?
Yeah.
And so those are my thoughts on it.
All right, Greg, I'm sure you have something to say.
Well, I mean,
especially you wrote about this week. So
yeah, my concern isn't with the mistake. I mean, guys make mistakes. Jim Joyce, I called out Jim Joyce. I didn't call him out, but I mentioned him. I mentioned Don Denkinger. There's been all sorts of officials over the years who've made mistakes, and that's the way in all sports. And that just it happens. My issue with this isn't the mistake itself, and we can get into who's really, was there too much confusion. My issue is Nick touched on it briefly when he said doubling down. Is the doubling down the potential, and I have to be careful when I say this, potential lying by Brad Allen. It would be a lot better. I know we don't get into politics in this show, but it's like that gaffe that Nikki Haley made recently when she refused to admit that the Civil War was about slavery. If you just come clean and just say I blew it, and instead of digging yourself deeper, trying to talk your way out of it, trying to frame it, trying to twist it, if it just seems there was so much evidence, Al and Nick, of that refuted what Brad Allen's position which was that Dan Skipper was the one who reported in to him as eligible, which when it wasn't, it was Decker. Jared Goff was shown basically shoving Decker toward the official. The sky camera shows Decker going to the official. There's a blown up, I'm not sure if you saw this one, there's another clip going around the internet now. Somebody blew it up. And you could see Allen make eye contact with Decker and say something like okay, or nod his head or something at Decker, and then go to the line of scrimmage and do his thing. There was no reason to rush any of this. The clock is stopped. It's a 2-point conversion. There's a play clock eventually, but it doesn't start until Brad Allen tells the game clock operator or the play clock operator to indeed start it. So there was no reason to rush anything. This wasn't, hurrying up the line of scrimmage and trying to get this thing off before the game clock expired. So everybody should have just taken, a little bit more time and just made sure they took a deep breath and got everything straight. It seemed like it was all kind of hurried, and it didn't need to be. And that's on all sides. I think everybody's kind of guilty of that. I just don't like Al. I just don't like the refusal to come clean. And the more that you do that, and Jim Joyce, if you remember, right away admitted and was just emotionally distraught that he had blown the call. And that was just a personal accomplishment. That didn't cost anybody a game. It didn't change the outcome of the game, but it cost him obviously the perfect game, but it didn't cost anyone the game. But he was emotionally distraught, and I felt bad for the guy. And Don Denkinger, who went to his grave literally, known as the guy who blew Game 6 for the Cardinals in the '85 World Series with a horrific call at first base. Those guys don't want that. They don't want to be nobody. They just assume nobody know their name. They don't want anybody to know their name, frankly. So, now Brad Allen, and I said it in my piece, you can add Brad Allen now to the list of people, NFL officials, who don't dare step into an NFL city for fear of their own safety, and he doesn't dare step in Detroit. This week it's the Lions fans that are upset. Maybe next week it'll be the Eagles fans. Maybe the week after that it'll be the Chiefs fans. Who knows? But these NFL officials are getting too famous, I said, and meaning that we know their names when we shouldn't. And if Allen would have just, at the very least, just said, look, maybe I did get the number wrong. The game can't be changed anyway. You can't change you can't change. But what he's doing now, what the league is doing, and frankly, Al and Nick, what's got me ticked off too, are these talking head guys that are the official, like the Dean Blandinos of the world, the John Terry's of the world, and guys like that who I thought were a little bit more, objective are just lining up right behind Brad Allen, because they're officials at heart, because that's where they come from, and they just don't dare call out an official on national television, and that's disturbing, because now I don't have any faith in those guys to really tell like it is, because they're just trying to make every excuse under the sun for why Allen may have made the mistake.
It's honestly, that was the first comparison that came to mind, especially after that the pool report came out and the word salad that Brad Allen spewed. He kept saying number 70, that would be Dan Skipper, reported. And it's the other thing that keeps up. Dan Skipper's like almost 7 foot tall. The man is huge. He's a much bigger man. He's even bigger than Taylor Decker. And and if you look at the video, you see you see Skipper running up, but he never gets up to Allen. Meanwhile, you got Sewell and Decker, I believe, right next to Allen, and Decker saying, "I'm reporting," at least according to Decker. And what the Lions have no reason to lie. And the thing is, though, and that's the other thing, is that it's not like the Lions had a whole bunch of time to get their story straight that they screwed up. They didn't screw up.
Right.
And we're also going to remember that Dan Campbell said, "I told the officials exactly what we were going to do before the game." And it came out today. He actually said, "I had it on a diagram. I wrote it down and showed them this is what we're going to do." And then you have the NFL came out and said, well, they're essentially blaming the Lions for saying they were trying to deceive. Well, isn't that the point of a trick play? You're trying to deceive, and that's the thing. This stuff was on video for all season long. Dan Skipper, the backup offensive lineman, he all season long he's been coming in as an eligible player, in reporting. So this was something they had in their hip pocket where the Vikings saw that, and previously in the game, I think they said Skipper had reported as eligible a handful of times in that game. So essentially, all the Lions were counting on is that the Vikings would have muscle memory, that they would see Skipper come into the game, immediately think, "Oh, he's going to be eligible. We better keep an eye on him." And then they flipped it and made it Decker was going to be the eligible player. So this is all on the officials, all completely on the officials. And if that's what got me, I'm with you, Greg. If if Allen had just said, "I screwed up, I blew the call, I'm sorry," and I think everybody would have moved on. But by doubling down, and there's video evidence of exactly, we have a good idea what went down, because it's all on video. Every single bit of it's on video. That's the upsetting part. And then the NFL essentially saying, "Well, this is the Lions' fault because they got too tricky." They got their intent to deceive backfired by tricking the referee. It's kind of infuriating. And that's the other thing is that, I'm all for unions. But hell, Linda, my girlfriend, she's in a union. She's a damn Teamster. I'm all for unions. But I'm not sure what is it with the umpires and referees union to the point where the league cannot get rid of at all the incompetent people. People like Brad Allen, MLB, Angel Hernandez. How does he still have a job after all these years of being horrible? I mean, considered by far the worst umpire in baseball. Brad Allen's the same way. He is considered the worst referee in the NFL. Yet there seems to be no mechanism in place to discipline or review or remove these guys. Essentially, you have to wait for them to retire. I mean, great. Yeah, I'm glad they have some protections, but it seems like when it comes to the referees and umpires, when it comes to actual disciplining and grading them, there is absolutely no recourse. And that's where you end up with these people, these referees, these umps like Brad Allen, Angel Hernandez, who are essentially put on ump shows or screw up and then don't admit to their mistakes. And it leads to controversies that, what are you going to do? There's literally nothing the Lions can do about it. Nothing can be done. So it's infuriating to say the very least. Infuriating. Let me ask you this question. What are you going to do?
Let me ask you this question, guys. If the NFL is trying to put the onus on the Lions, then why did they downgrade the crew?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. This is they're like they've been shadow banned or something. We're not going to be in the playoffs. But weirdly, I don't know if you caught this today. The Allen crew is doing the Saturday night game again, the Monday Night Football on Saturday night this weekend. So they're going to be back on national television, if you can believe it. But reportedly, according to, I think it was Schefter that reported this, that they've been taken out of the playoff rotation, deservedly so. But it's the NFL. I don't know about you, what you guys think, but I have a feeling does the NFL ever admit they screwed something up? Very rarely, if ever. I mean, look back to the suspensions they give when they wanted to give Ray Rice almost beat a woman that actually knocked a woman out, whatever it was, and they gave him 2-game suspension. And the only reason that got changed is because the video came out. The NFL has a history of just screwing things up and then not fixing them or just hoping it all goes away. Look how long it took for the Deflategate to get figured out.
Well, look at the Jameis. What's his name? JMO and that stupid gambling.
The gambling suspension. Yeah.
On a college game.
Yeah.
On an app in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, and it was originally a 6-game suspension.
6?
Tom Brady got it was originally 6. It got cut.
Yeah. That's right. And then Ray, what you were bringing up, Ray Rice knocked someone out cold. Not someone, his girlfriend.
Yeah.
He sucker punched her, knocked her out cold, and got 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the NFL, the shield. It's all about the shield, as they say, and there's they can do no wrong. And hell, we even Goodell over the past year or so just been saying how good officiating is, and we're seeing it every weekend that officiating is not very good. And that's the other thing, Greg. Where you fall on this is that this is the only major league that doesn't have full-time officials. These guys are all part-time. They are not. This is not their living. These are all bankers and lawyers and insurance salesmen who on the weekend referee NFL games. Meanwhile, you got, obviously there's a lot more games involved when you talk about the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball. But with the kind of revenue that the NFL is taking in, you would think that they would want younger guys that they can train from the ground up, pay them a very good wage, and have them ready. You know what I'm saying? I don't think 55-year-old guys should be refereeing football games, but that's what they usually have out there.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because that's been the knock on NFL officials for years is what you just said about the fact that they're not full time and so forth, and the age
they're
thing,
old. They're old like us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the league has tried to get calls right. I mean, they do have replay. They seem to be expanding the number of plays, the types of plays that are reviewable. But geez, it just seems like those non-reviewable plays are the ones that get you. And again, I'm not expecting perfection,
right?
But I really believe that it's. And I don't know, Al. I don't know why the officials are so protected, like tenured professors would be, or any other.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
I don't know. I really don't know. It's hard to get rid of bad professors. It's hard to get rid of bad teachers. I'm a union guy too. I'm with you, but I don't. There's also got to be accountability. There's got to be a happy medium between protecting a group of employees and holding them accountable. And
exactly.
Here's the other thing too, and I mentioned it's really kind of the crux of my article, was all the money that's flying around with gambling nowadays. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody's betting on everything, not just who wins and loses like the old days, and not just whether or not they beat the point spread, but they're betting on everything now, everything under the sun. The fantasy football thing has kind of turned into the betting thing now. I mean, whereas players were, just playing harmless fantasy football and trying to get the most out of their players every week. Now they're placing bets on these things, betting on whether a guy will get 60 yards, betting on how many first downs a team will get. I mean, it's amazing what you can bet on anymore in the palm of your hand. And with all that money flying around, you'd think the NFL would have even more incentive to make sure that these games are on the up and up. But like I said in the article, they've had their cake and eat it and have been eating it too for decades.
Yeah, it's I think that's the best way to put it. Well, let me. Well, while we're on this, we might as well talk about the 2-point conversion itself, because I think we're all in agreement that the referee screwed up. The NFL refuses to admit any kind of wrongdoing ever, and I think this is just how it is. And I understand. I think Dan Campbell, for the most part, has really handled it well, saying it's over. We're going to take this as a learning experience, and I think he's going to. This is going to be the little a motivator for the remainder of the season for these guys. He's going to, they don't respect us, kind of thing, and obviously I would love to see the Lions use this in a way where it could propel them late, throughout the rest of the year. But the other controversy being was going for 2. And he ended up going for 2 3 times. Obviously, the first time after the score, then came the penalty. So moving it back to the 7. Rather than kick, they decided to do it again. Micah Parsons was offside. So they got half the distance. So I think they ended up going from the 3.5. Incomplete pass. I'm not sure about the call. You're throwing it to your third string tight end. I had an issue. I think that's the one issue I had with that. But there's a lot of fans, a lot of pundits saying, well, after everything got screwed up and they went back to the 7, they should have just kicked and played for overtime. Dan Campbell said he told his offense even before the final drive started, they were going to go. They were going to go for 2. We're going for the win. Obviously, in his words, we were going for the win. Nick, you like Dan Campbell's decision, or do you think he was overly aggressive, as he can be sometimes?
I would say, why not? I mean, what does he lose if they lost the game? What exactly did they lose? Maybe just a seeding in the playoffs, but they're still,
which was a long shot anyway, and that was a long shot to begin with.
Right. So what exactly does he lose at this point? Even if he loses the next game with the Vikings, what does he really lose? Nothing.
Yeah.
Versus going into an overtime where he could lose one of his players now.
Yeah.
One of his key players trying to win a game that it really doesn't matter anymore, to be honest. So what the hell? Go for it. Because, you give you don't want to give the other team much time to have their chance too.
Yeah.
You don't want to give them their shot to come back. And then in what happens in I hate the NFL overtime, to be honest. It's just anything could happen on that.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about we can compare the two when we talk about Michigan, about the difference in overtimes. But Greg, what are your thoughts on Motor City Dan Campbell's aggressiveness?
I said, as they were marching down the field, I told my wife, I said, you know what? If they get a touchdown here, they should go for 2, because there's not a lot to lose.
Yeah.
To Nick's point, there's not a lot to lose, but there's a lot more to gain. You come out of that game with a win, and now you potentially could get the number 1 seed. You get a really good shot at the number 2 seed. And why go into overtime? Why do that when anything can happen? So I was all for, to be honest with you, I was all for all 3 attempts. Even when they were back at the 7-yard line, I said, why not? Go for it. Execution wasn't good on the third one when he threw it to Mitchell. I didn't like the target. I didn't like the play. But had he put that ball where Mitchell would have caught it in full stride, Mitchell would have walked into the end zone. So it was a poor throw. No qualms at all going for it whatsoever. No qualms with the trick play. Some folks are criticizing the play call, that it was too cute, but it worked. I mean, it worked. It wasn't. If they had thrown it in there in the end zone and Decker dropped it, well, okay, I'll buy that. But it was a perfectly executed play. The Lions have thrown to linemen several times. That's nothing new, and no qualms whatsoever. In fact, I would have been disappointed had he not gone for 2, because I think to play for overtime on the road like that, when you've got a chance to put your foot on the neck of a team in its own building, and the Cowboys only had 23 seconds left. Now, that's still some time, but that's not a lot of time still at the same time. So I had no qualms with him going for 2, and that's not the issue. The issue is how that call was adjudicated, not the call itself.
Right, exactly. Yeah, this is one of the times I think we are all in agreement, because I have no problem going for 2. Like I said, there's so many mitigating issues here. like Nick brought up the injury issue. The Lions had already lost JMO, and Laporta had also gotten hurt in the game. Obviously, you're on the road. You're on the damn 2-yard line. I don't know what the actual analytics or the odds are, but I like my chances better of putting it in the end zone from the 2-yard line or even the 7-yard line than going overtime, hoping you win a coin flip, and if you lose the coin flip, hoping that CD Lamb isn't running 80 yards downfield like he was during half the game wide open because he was unstoppable. Right. Dak Prescott threw for over 300 yards. So, as well as the Lions played, they did dodge a few bullets, like CD Lamb fumbling that one ball out of the end zone, and they got, for the touchback. So,
well, but what people aren't talking about though, Al, is the one that I don't think he should have gone for, which was when it was 7-3. Yeah, he should have kicked the field goal, made it 7-6. Yeah. That one I didn't like. I didn't like that one. I think down there he should have at that point in the game, he should have taken the points. Because then you start chasing points. That's 3 more points now you've got to chase the rest of the game, and that it may not sound like a lot of points, but that catches up to you, and it would have frankly decided this game had he gone for had he just kicked the field goal,
or for that matter, if didn't the Money Badger miss an extra point in this game as well? So, if I remember right,
I don't.
Well, they ended up losing they ended up putting 20 on the board. So,
it was 19 because they
might be right.
2-point conversion. Did he miss one?
I'm going to look it. I'll look it up in a second.
Look it up. Make sure I'm not talking out my ass.
Okay. He may have. I
don't
know.
Even still,
you might be right.
Because
which goes back to my soapbox about get a fucking kicker, please.
Kicker, exactly. Because that was what I was going to bring up. The kicking has been an Achilles heel with this team all year, that they don't trust it. And I do think we still see that again and again when it comes to extra points and when they decide to kick, when they decide to kick field goals and things like that. So this team does have an issue in the. There was a reason why Michael Badgley didn't make the team coming out of training camp. Then they brought him back.
Badgley Badgley did not miss an extra point. And he missed an extra point, I think, in the game against Minnesota.
Against Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Regardless, the kicking has been in question with this team. And I have no problem with it. And I think I both of you pretty much nailed it. What was there to lose? If they lose this game, they're still a 3 seed. They're locked in. And that's the difference between the Lions game going for 2, and I was half thinking that Jim Harbaugh was going to go for 2 last night. Against Alabama. Yeah. But then that's a win or go home game, and as we'll get into, the college overtime is completely different, where you're guaranteed to get the ball, and that's the thing in the NFL. If the Lions had lost the coin flip, Gallos gets the ball, and then they score a touchdown, game's over. You never touch the damn ball. So I'm not a fan of NFL overtime. So hell, I'm not a fan of overtime. Period. Ties don't bother me in the least. At least not when it comes in the regular season. And then in the postseason, then you worry about having extra time, so to speak. But regardless of all that, it's I don't mind the aggression at all. After years, Greg, of seeing like Jim Caldwell punt from the other team's 39, or Matt Patricia being the most risk-averse person I've ever seen when it came to coaching. Between the last 2 coaches, I love seeing a head coach pay attention to the statistics, pay attention to what analytics say, and go for it occasionally, or even more than occasionally. And as a player, I love that. When I played in high school, I loved having trick plays. I love going for it. That's your coach putting his faith in your skills and what you're going to be able to do. So I can imagine the Lions themselves love the fact that Dan Campbell says, yeah, I trust you guys to go out and win this game for me. So we're going to throw the ball on 4th down occasionally, or we're going to run the ball on 4th and 6. And I have complete confidence that you guys are going to execute. Doesn't always happen, but it's worked enough for the Lions to the point where, they are a threat to make noise in the postseason.
I got to agree with you. I don't mind I hate that the quote unquote trick plays get a bad rap.
Yeah.
Why is it not okay for an offense to fool the defense? Just completely fool the defense. I don't think I think Dan Campbell sent 3 guys over to talk to Brad Allen. But only one of them spoke on purpose to throw off. I think that's genius. That's a genius detail. And if Brad Allen was so fucking stupid as to not be able to sort things out, that's on him.
Yeah.
So he's not. I don't know what he's thinking. You know, he's being told that a certain player is eligible and nobody else is speaking.
Yeah.
So I don't mind if the Cowboys are thrown off. Speaking of which, do you remember several years ago, Matt Stafford was at the goal line with the Lions against the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, the fake, and he kind of fake clock. Yeah, he was going to clock it.
Yeah, he kind of lazily walked up like he's going to spike it, and he's going to like just kill the clock, and he just goes over the goal line.
Yeah,
and he's like, "I did that because they were lazy. They weren't paying attention."
Yeah,
you know, that's what else are you supposed to do? That was a smart play. He was reading the other team. He was, taking advantage of them. Why not?
Yeah, and this is all now on film, and this is just more stuff that the opposition's got to think about. I mean, I'd love all this stuff. All right,
that's fine.
Next week. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I mean, we could always go back to run running back right, run running back left, run running back up the middle, punt. I mean, something boring like that. Like old style football. So.
Oh yeah,
this is interesting.
I've run across some old on YouTube of old games especially like from the 70s, and that's exactly what offenses were back in the day.
That's boring.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Football should be fun, and the Lions football, for the most part, has been pretty damn fun. All right, we're going to the last game of the year. I shouldn't say that. The last regular season game, because this team's going to be in the playoffs. They're going to play Minnesota. Dan Campbell, Greg, says he's going to play his starters. Do you agree with this? Or do you think – because the game really doesn't mean much, if anything, because they need both the Niners and the Eagles to lose to get I believe, to get the number 2 seed, and the odds of that aren't very good. And they're playing the Vikings. The Vikings have nothing to play for. This game pretty much means nothing. So Dan Campbell said, I believe the quote was, or I'm paraphrasing, they can rest them when the season's over, the starters. So he's supposedly playing them this Sunday. Where do you fall on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that why some people might be wringing their hands over this, but I'm okay with it. I think that sometimes you get a little bit too cute and say, okay, I'm going to give my guys a rest, and they come out the next game and maybe they're not as sharp, maybe they're a little bit rusty. I know it might sound crazy. You've played 16 games, you shouldn't be, but they're used to playing every week except for the bye week, obviously. Had they gotten the number 1 seed, yes, they would have gotten a bye. That's true. But those are buys that you earn. Those are buys that you earn, and you can get guys healthy and so forth. Take a week off. I don't have any issues with him playing. Watch somebody blow out a knee now that I said that, but I have no issues with anybody with the starters playing this game. He wants to keep his guys sharp. I think Campbell's the kind of guy that's afraid that if he takes the foot off the gas pedal a little bit, it'll do more harm than good. And so I have no issue. I don't think you can play this game scared anyway. I don't think you can try, play it so you're not, I want to play this so that people don't get hurt. And I just don't, I have no issues with it. I can see why some people might, because like you outlined, it doesn't, for them from a standings perspective. Yeah, it may not mean a whole lot unless, but if they finish 12-5, they do have a shot at the second seed, do they not?
Right. Yeah, they do have a shot. Like I said, I believe they're going to need, and that's the other thing, that the 2 games that they would need losses are going to happen after their game's over, which would be the Niners game and the Eagles game. So it's not like last year where they they already knew that they had been knocked out of the playoffs because of the referee shenanigans in that Rams Seahawks game. There's a Lions again getting screwed by refs in a game they weren't even involved in. But it doesn't bother me in the least. Nick, what's your thoughts on Dan Campbell just treating us like a week 2? He's just going to play his starters.
I kind of agree with Greg, and let them play. Let them stay sharp. Let it. You know, who knows? Maybe they try and implement some other things that they're going to want to use in the playoffs as well. So,
put more stuff on tape. Exactly. I wouldn't mind seeing Teddy. I wouldn't mind seeing Teddy Bridgewater play, because this is supposedly his last season. He's announced he's going to retire after this year, and the Vikings are the team that he made his name with. He was drafted, but he was their starter until he had that horrific leg injury that almost ended his career. He almost lost his leg. It was so bad. So I'm especially, I would be shocked if the Lions do some things like make sure Sam Laporta gets a couple catches so he sets the rookie record for catches. Try and get Jared Goff a touchdown pass or two so he can hit the 30 mark. Things like that. Maybe get both running backs 1,000 yards. We'll see how this all goes. All this depends on how the game itself is going, because we don't know how the Vikings are going to take this, because I don't even think they know who's going to play quarterback for them right now. They played both of them last weekend, and they both sucked. So we'll have to wait and see where that. But yeah, I don't have too many issues with it. But also, I'm keeping my fingers crossed as well. Shit happens with this team sometimes. I want to see them go into the playoffs fully staffed, and that's the other thing, that they are getting healthier. CJ Gardner-Johnson is I believe, going to play this week. Aleem McNeil is supposed to be back on the roster this week. They actually cut Isaiah Buggs today, who was I don't know if it's a shocker. I think it's a shocker that he just ended up falling out of favor or falling out of the rotation so early in the year, because I remember he was one of the guys that was considered one of the locker room leaders and made a big deal about wanting to come back to Detroit. And here we are at the end of the year, and they're moving on from him, because he's been a healthy scratch for a good part of the season. So I kind of wonder what's going on there, if it was completely performance-based or was something else going on there. But they need to start making some roster space, because they got McNeil coming back. They got CJ DJ coming back. James Houston, which this would be a big deal. They're saying he probably should be back for the playoff game. So the Lions are, Nick, kind of run into a roster crunch all of a sudden.
It's a good problem to have. I don't know if I've used to that with the Lions. I mean, they've had roster problems, but of a different kind usually. But usually not having a roster to be proud of at all. So, Isaiah Buggs, I didn't realize he was quite so fallen out of favor. I saw the article a little while ago as well, and it looks like he is sort of been out of favor and hasn't played much overall. Yeah. So I don't know what to say about cutting him, but they're obviously trying to make room for a bunch of other guys in there. So I'm guessing that's also part of why it's happening.
I mean, when you're a healthy scratch for more than half the games, or give or take, when you need a roster crunch, that's the kind of guy who's going to get cut, unfortunately. As we wrap this up, Greg, what's your thoughts on all this?
Well, I mean, the getting healthy at the right time thing is good. But what is still concerning is Jared Goff. I'm sorry. He still makes me nervous. Kind of getting lost in all this is that he didn't play the best of games against Dallas the other night. No, he had he really can drive you crazy, because he had a horrible interception in the last couple of minutes of that game, where he was pressured and he made a horrible throw, but yet he drove the team down. Yeah, albeit once again, the Cowboys showed you play prevent defense. The only thing it does prevent you from winning, that mantra.
Yeah, but you could argue the Cowboys the Cowboys just screwed up the clock management as well. Why they were throwing the ball? Yeah, that was the other thing. Yeah, that's true. But Goff still. I don't like the lack of mobility. I don't like the some of the decision making. The ball comes out of his hand funny too many times for me. Even the balls that are completed, they come out like wounded ducks. I'm really thinking that if the Lions lose, it's going to be because of him. I hate to say it like that, but I mean, I just feel like that he's the one guy that stands between them winning or losing. And I know that you could say that about a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, but I just get what it is, Al, it's the style. It's his style of play. I just don't think I think he's a 90s style quarterback, or even 80s or 70s style pocket quarterback playing in an era
that just doesn't, you know, he's like a mid-range jump shot guy who's playing in the 3-point era. You know,
he's Rip Hamilton, in other words.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't, you know, but on the other hand, if he can be protected, if they do a good job protecting, but you can't give a quarterback in the NFL 5 to 7 seconds every time he goes back to pass. You know, the pocket's going to collapse. I don't like the lack of awareness. He doesn't seem to have that internal clock. I just feel like that something bad is going to happen in the playoffs, and he's going to be in the middle of it.
Oh boy, here we have a quarterback controversy brewing.
You're not wrong about that. I agree with you. It seems like
it's going to be interesting offseason, especially if something like that happens. And they had, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. That
you know,
it's what I. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead and say what you're saying.
I was going to say, like, you can look throughout the season. The Lions' fortunes can be mapped to Goff's effectiveness in every single game. When he's hitting his targets, when he's not throwing picks, and he's doing well in the sort of the Lions. But he's had a stretch of games where he's throwing like multiple interceptions per game, and the Lions' offense really sputtered, and then you can tell the defense isn't good enough to really hold teams that well. That's not the strength of their team. It's their offense. And the Lions' offensive line must be fabulous to give that turtle, what do you call it, time to pass as it is. So could you imagine what a fast quarterback would do, how that would help, how the Detroit line would help a fast quarterback?
You mean someone like Hendon Hooker?
You know, I don't know. He's a rookie. I have nothing to say about him until he actually sees the field and plays. So
well, I do remember watching him at Tennessee, and he was extremely mobile. He had a great arm. You know, he's got all the tools. It's just matter he's older. He's coming off a major injury, but the Lions drafted him for a reason. I don't think it was him to be a backup. You know, so
and you're probably right.
That's for the that's more off-season stuff, but it is something that we have to think about.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions are getting the most out of Jared Goff, quite honestly.
Yeah.
You know, they, as a coaching staff and front office, they're getting a lot of a very immobile quarterback, and, you know, they probably are getting more out of him than the Rams probably did, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's definitely playing better than that now. He seems to be a much more confident quarterback, but then again, Sean McVay, I think, ground him into some dust. You know, he doesn't seem like he'd be the easiest guy to play for. So, all right. With that, I guess the next time we talk Lions will probably be post playoff game, will it not? I think so. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. I don't want them to play the Rams. I don't want to have a whole week of Matthew Stafford coming back to Detroit, because that's going to be they're a better team than the Rams, but I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the Matthew Stafford crap. That Detroit Rams bullshit. No, thank you. But, okay, with that, Greg, I guess it's time for question 2 of the birthday game.
Yes, this is for the photographed autograph. This person made his name in the world of baseball. He was born in the state in 1963. He started out as a third baseman, but is way more well known as something else. Played in the American League.
Started as a third baseman, became far more known for something else. Obviously, would have played in the 80s.
Some say he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Should be in the Hall of Fame. Any ideas here, Dick?
Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. He is in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. For years, they didn't think he was going to get in, but he eventually did get in. He is a Hall of Famer. I'm sorry. He is a Hall of Famer. My bad. He is a Hall of Famer. 7-time All-Star. Played on the West Coast in the American League. Started as a third baseman, but was a hell of a hitter.
You're the baseball historian, Nick. Yeah.
Nick should especially get this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Now you've really done it. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. He played third base.
initially, but then became
something else.
Strictly hitter.
West Coast. I mean, the only third baseman on the. Well, that's the West, not the West.
It's right in your backyard, Nick.
Oh crap.
I don't know. God.
Edgar Martinez.
Edgar Martinez. Bing, bing, bing,
oh,
bing, bing,
yeah.
Oh.
Very good. Edgar Martinez.
That is right in your backyard, Nick. My goodness.
Yes.
I think that's the only Mariner that's a Hall of Fame. Well, maybe Ichiro too, but.
Yeah. Well, and he was only, and unlike Ichiro, he was only a Mariner. He only played for the Mariners.
Yeah.
Played 18 seasons for the Mariners, amassed over 2,200 hits, but there was a lot of controversy about whether he should be in the Hall of Fame because he was a DH for the most part, and people said, "Well, you shouldn't put a DH in." And my argument was always, "Well, it is a position, isn't it?" you know, I mean, you can't hold that against the guy. I mean, he was a great hitter, and he finally was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2019. Edgar Martinez, 61 years old today. So happy birthday, Edgar! And here's a little tidbit, Al. You'll appreciate this. Edgar said that he was inspired to play baseball after watching Roberto Clemente play in the 1971 All-Star game.
All-Star game? Ah, that's the one that had like 10 Hall of Famers in it. Whatever it was at Tiger Stadium. Yeah.
Yes.
And Reggie Jackson hit the light tower.
Yes.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Back when the All-Star game still meant something.
Fellow Puerto Rican, Roberto Clemente. Of course, Clemente was a god in Puerto Rico, as you can imagine.
All right. So when is Nick getting his prize?
Well, I'll email him his photographed autograph after the show.
I want to know who it is in case I can't read the autograph.
Oh, well, you want to,
yeah. Well, and he needs to get a frame for it, so he needs to know how big it is. So, I mean, it is a photograph.
Oh, yeah.
Is this an 8x10, a 4x6? I mean, there's lots of questions here. We need to be answered. All right, with that, we're going to talk about something else that's in Nick's wheelhouse, being he is a Wolverine, a Wolverine grad, and that would be the Wolverines themselves. Michigan Wolverines are headed to the college football playoff championship game. Woo! Yeah. And possibly what is, I think is arguably, as Nick has probably going to throw streamers out on video here, and possibly what was probably the best semifinal day in college football playoff history. Both games came down to the final play of the game in a very sloppy but very exciting game. The Wolverines came from behind, something they rarely have had to do over the past 3 years. That's what made it so nerve-wracking, even more nerve-wracking, that you didn't know if they had it in them. But they came from behind to beat Alabama 27-20 in overtime. Michigan had a dominant game from the D, and they stepped up to stop Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe on a 4th and goal, keeper from the 3 to send Michigan to Houston. Meanwhile, at a game that started like almost 9 p.m. Eastern time, didn't end. I think I was watching the clock. It ended at 12:50 a.m. Eastern. Good Lord, it's crazy. Even Major League Baseball is like, what the matter for you guys? But Michigan will face Washington, who beat Texas. And they almost blew that game with some massive. There was an untimely injury, which didn't help, but there was some clock mismanagement, and Texas drove all the way down to the 12-yard line of Washington before failing to convert on 3 passes into the end zone, allowing Washington to become Michigan's opponent. It's an all Big Ten college championship final. So, Nick, I'm sure you have lots to say about this game because it was an absolute. One, it was a thriller, and 2, it was very sloppy. But what was really weird is that Michigan has had excellent special teams all year, and they played the worst game on special teams I've seen from Michigan probably since trouble with the snap. Was the last time I saw something so egregious from the Michigan special teams. They were horrible yesterday.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll add one more thing. I'm a Wolverine in Husky country. So
that's right.
University of Washington ain't far from me at all. It's like a 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
So, and I'm surrounded by Huskies. But I will tell you right now that every Michigan touchdown, I will be blaring "Hail to the Victors" out here in my neighborhood. and if they don't like it, they can go to hell. So I don't see them. I don't see Michigan going to the national championship very much. It's already been what 26, 27 years technically.
You can't believe 97 is that long ago.
97.
Yeah,
so that's a damn long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I'll be alive for the next one if it goes that long. So.
And by the way, that 97 team, Nick, that bothers me because that was the year, that was Tom Osborne's last year at Nebraska. And they ended up, Michigan, if you remember, I think tied, because that was before they actually had an actual national championship game.
Yep.
I believe Michigan and Nebraska tied in the polls, and a lot of
I think it was Michigan won the AP poll, and Nebraska won the coaches.
A lot of folks said it was like the Tom Osborne going away present.
Yes, because there was a lot of politicking going on with that.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Yes.
But there's none of that here.
Nope. That's and this is the last 4-team playoff. Next year it'll be 12 teams. So teams, I'm sure we'll see. Like this year, Ohio State would have made it. Georgia would have made it. Probably some teams like Ole Miss and probably Penn State. It would have been different to say the least. So at the very least,
FSU.
Yes, exactly. And can't forget them. We'll touch on that a little bit. Can't forget about Florida State. But the 4-team playoff went out with a bang because there was some 2 thrilling games. And other than that last drive, I think that is really for as well as J.D. McCarthy has played as Michigan's quarterback over the past couple of years. He never really had that moment, if you know what I'm saying, that signature game, that signature drive, that signature play. And he finally got it on that final drive. There was, because between they converted that 4th and 2 in their own territory of 3 minutes to play on the pass to Blake Corum, if you ask me, he should have been the MVP, if you ask me. But, as these things go, they usually tend to go to the quarterback. And he did, I think he had 3 touchdown passes. But, and then there was the pass to Roman Wilson, who, as I was watching that live, I go, did that get tipped? And when they showed the replay, it sure as hell did.
Yeah.
And Roman Wilson made a hell of a catch to get the ball into the red zone to take him down to 5, and he went out and scored from there when he caught a touchdown pass. So, but it was, it was one of those things where J.D. McCarthy, and that was always going into the game. We saw a lot of this, Nick and Greg. The talk was, Milroe, he's the better quarterback. He's the guy who Michigan's really got to worry about. J.J. McCarthy, what has he really done this year? And it turned out J.J. McCarthy outplayed Milroe. Milroe, for all the talk about how good he was, he looked – he couldn't throw the ball. I think he only threw for like 116 yards. I mean, the only real play they had with Milroe that was successful was letting him run the ball, on the quarterback draws and the keepers and things like that, until it finally failed on that last play of the game, where on the low snap, and he ran it right up the gut, right into about 10 Michigan defenders who were ready for the game, ready for it. So, this was, in some ways, this was the J.J. McCarthy game, but I would say the reason they won the game, other than the defense, was Blake Corum. That kid's a stud.
What do you think? What do you guys think about Corum's prospects as an NFL runner? I think he's too small. Or am I off base?
No, I don't think you're. He's not super fast either. He's got Mike Hart written all over him. Yeah. Mike Hart had an NFL career, but it was as a backup. You know. But the thing I think that might give Corum a career is that the guy is money. At the goal line. So.
Yeah.
But he'll get drafted, but I bet it's a low date. It's probably a day 3 thing. He's like a guy you take in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. Yeah. He'll probably make it, but he's not going to be a star. But
I mean, that's
I'm sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say that's kind of the fate of a lot of Michigan running backs, though.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That's true.
For the most part,
that really is. I mean, a few of them, had NFL careers. The only one I can really think of is Tyrone Wheatley, because he was just a stud runner. But I don't know how many of them, have done well past maybe a couple years or so. Jamie Morris maybe a little bit, but that's going way
Mike
back.
Hart played. Jamie Morris made it. I remember Rob Lytle had an NFL career, but none of these guys were stars. Tim Biakapatuka made it. He wasn't the star.
Chris Perry.
Michigan's
was in there.
Yeah. Michigan stars when it comes to the NFL are going to be linemen.
Yeah, right.
Yes. That's
linemen.
Like look at Michigan. They got both their guards are Michigan guys in Glasgow and why am I drawing a blank on the
Jonah
other
Jackson?
Yeah, Jackson. Yeah. Jonah Jackson. So and there are a lot of Bama guys in that team too, but whatever. But but regardless, it was a fun game. And Dick, did you manage to stay up and watch the Washington game as well?
I didn't watch.
I shouldn't say stay up. It was over at like 9 o'clock your time. So yeah.
No, that was fine for me. But
yeah,
I kind of like caught a little bit of it here and there, but I didn't really watch the game after that. Michael
Penix that kid looked lights out. If that realistically, that's he was just throwing darts all deep. They weren't nickel and diming the way down the field. He was throwing bombs all night and was successful at it. But that's the question with that's the thing with Washington. Michigan's got to worry about. They got 3 NFL receivers out there, wide receivers that play all the time for them, and that's they don't run the ball very well, but they got 3 deep threats, and that's how they beat Texas, by throwing the ball deep. So I still think Michigan's a better team than Texas. I won't say I'm confident, but I do think that Michigan probably has the better coach, has the better line, probably has the better defense, but Washington has the better quarterback. Washington has the better receivers, and they can light it up, even though they did have stretches this year where they looked mortal.
Well, don't forget
Michigan is a favorite right now.
5 sacks. Michigan had 5. I think it had 5 sacks in the first half.
5 sacks in the first half. Yeah.
So
Alabama said we should just run the ball.
Yeah.
So,
but this all leads to.
It should be a good game. It should be a good game. Just kind of like for what you said, the matchup is, Michigan's strength is their defense. I think by far, as much as we'll talk about JJ McCarthy and Corum and stuff like that. They can get kind of boring and they can be ineffective at times. It's kind of hit or miss with them. But that defense is solid as hell. Literally, what did Alabama's only recourse was to run the quarterback. Really, they completely stopped the run. There was a little bit on in terms of passes, but not much overall. So Michigan's defense has stopped everybody. That's really their biggest strength. So let's see if it's good enough to stop the Washington offense. So
and I think the head coach Jim Harbaugh, what leads us to what's next for Harbaugh? What's next for Harbs? There are already 2 prime, relative. I think 1 prime job that would be the Chargers. The Raiders is also open. There's talk that the Bears job is going to maybe open, and Harbaugh was a quarterback for the Bears for years. And with those 2 jobs, with jobs opening up in the NFL, there's an NCAA investigation still ongoing between the recruiting stuff and Connor Stallions and all that bullshit. And he has hired an agent who has heavy NFL ties. Rumors are swirling about the future of Michigan's head coach. There are reports that Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel, who he's going to have to make a decision about the basketball team soon enough with Juwan Howard, because they look horrible right now. But supposedly there is a 10-year, $125 million contract on the table for Harbaugh to sign. The only caveat, I believe there's a clause in there saying he cannot look for an NFL job this year if he signs the contract. Meanwhile, Harbaugh was asked about his future during the post-game press conference over the win over Bama, and the ever-mercurial, mysterious Harbaugh said, "My future consists of a happy flight back to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Can't wait." That is a Harbaugh answer if I've ever heard one. So, Nick, is Jim Harbaugh coaching Michigan next year, or do you think he's gone, especially if they win a national title?
If they win a national championship, I don't know. I think he was right in just kind of deflecting that question right now. That was really smart. He wants to keep his team focused, so I would do the same thing too. Just, that kind of thing is down the line, because if he says anything about it, it's guaranteed going to be a distraction. Guaranteed. Do I think he wants to coach in the NFL? I'm sure it's on his mind. I'm sure he doesn't see himself being like Bo and being at Michigan 20 years and retiring.
Especially he's seen his brother as his brother's is coaching the looks like right now the favorite to make it to the Super Bowl, and the Ravens with John has that team looks like a juggernaut right now. You know, so I could see, and we've talked Harbaugh. It seems to be the kind of guy who would love to make some history, and and how many guys will have won a national title in football and then won a Super Bowl? That's a very short list. So I could see Harbaugh wanting to do something like that. And, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes either. We don't know how much he's wearing out the Michigan brass, because, he is definitely, I think calling him a character is being an understatement. He's eccentric. He really is. Now, eccentric in a lot of good ways, but also I think eccentric in a lot of ways that can wear on his bosses. I mean, we saw it happen in San Francisco. Greg, what do you think is going through what gears are churning in Jim Harbaugh's mind?
Yeah, I find it very, very hard to believe that he would stay if they win next week. I just don't know. He would be able to basically say, okay, mission accomplished. And I don't think anybody would really fault him at Michigan if he left after that. I mean, if you win a national championship and say adios, I don't know. I mean, that's what he was brought to do right? I mean, he was brought to bring the program from very, very good to elite. And if you win the national championship, you've done that. And I don't know really what else there would be for him to do except do it again. And anything he does at Michigan after this, you can only go down from here. So I would be shocked if he stays at Michigan if they win next week. If they lose, it's maybe a toss up. But your point about wearing down the brass and so forth. The thing about Harbaugh is that he's not the kind of guy that wants to just stop at age. What is he now? 60.
He's probably right around 60. Yeah, it's right around 60.
He's not the kind of guy that's going to stop at 60 and pause his life and say, I think I want to be coach at this university for the next 10 years of my life. I just don't see that. I know he loves Michigan. Don't get me wrong. He loves being there. I'm sure he came back home for a reason, but he's at the point now where I think if they win the championship, there's other fish to fry. You mentioned his brother. I know losing the Super Bowl to his brother was probably even more excruciating for him. But hey, you mentioned the Bears, by the way. I read where I think the Bears have basically said that Matt Eberflus will be back, which has got a lot of Bears fans, of course, all upset. But
that whole franchise is an uproar between what to do with the #1 pick. Should they should draft a quarterback with with Fields starting to play out of his mind all of a sudden.
Right.
So,
San Diego is intriguing. He coached out there in college.
It's LA.
Well, LA, I'm sorry, LA. I got to get that in my head. I got to get that. For 4 years now, I'm still calling them the San Diego Chargers. Yeah. But if he goes to the Chargers, he's out the West. But he's got a ready-made quarterback, a star quarterback.
Bingo.
And where he does not necessarily have that in Chicago. Now he could stay Midwest, of course, with Chicago. I don't think the Chicago job is going to be open. I think they've committed to Eberflus. The Bears have kind of come on the second half of the season, and they've kind of perked up a little bit. They really should have beaten the Lions in Detroit. So their record really, I think they're 4-1 in the last 5 games.
They're like the Lions last year, where they're
so they're kind of creeping up a little bit. He could stay Midwest. I don't think that job's going to be open. I think they've pretty much committed to Eberflus for next year. The Chargers job obviously is open, and there's that would
and the Raiders as well.
Sense. I don't see the Raiders. I don't see the Raiders necessarily as much.
Yeah,
as
I can see Mark Davis getting along with Jim Harbaugh.
I don't see the Raiders necessarily, but if it's to me it's more fascinating if they lose, because if they lose, then it's really going to be fascinating to see what he does. But if they win, he's gone. I can't imagine. I don't care how much money Ward Manuel throws. He's not going to coach at Michigan for 10 years. He's not. I don't care how much money.
Well, he's almost at that point now when you think about it.
Yeah,
he's at Michigan almost a decade at this point.
Right. He's not going to stay for another 10. He's not going to stay. It's like trying to pin Larry Brown down for 10 years at a job. He's not. It's not going to happen. He's the kind of guy that now. You know, Tom Izzo used to be the one we always talked about going to the NBA. Tom never did it. But Tom's a different kind of a guy. I think he's more of a college. His roots are more college. Jimmy's been in the NFL as a player. He's been in the NFL as an assistant. He's been in the NFL as a head coach. He's been there, done that. And I think he'd like to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. Another interesting one. If say the Jets want to move on from Robert Saleh, could you see Jim Harbaugh in New York City? Oh my God! And then having Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback.
I don't think so.
The headlines alone would be awesome. I mean, that Hard Knocks would be like, we want that. That's where we're going next year. But it's go ahead.
I was just thinking Harbaugh. It's still also possible he ends up in New England replacing Belichick.
No,
that could happen. If Jerry Jones decides to be Jerry Jones and move on from Mike McCarthy, what does Jerry Jones and Jim Harbaugh together look like?
Yeah,
God help us all.
Probably pretty much the same as it was if Jim Harbaugh and Jed York in San Francisco, where it all blew up after 4 years. But he got him to 3 championship games and a Super Bowl. So, but yeah, that's the thing with Harbaugh. I mean, what has he done? I think that's the other thing when it comes with coaches. It's like, after seeing what has happened with Saban in Alabama, where the headlines were today, this is going to be the first time he's won a he won a championship like every 3 years, almost like clockwork. This is the first time it hasn't happened, and it's kind of become with fan bases thinking, how come you can't be like Nick Saban when that is the outlier of outliers when it comes to winning titles? I mean, Michigan or Ohio State's, you win one every generation or two. Every generation you might get lucky to win 2. So I think that this has been a ramp up of like 4 seasons. He's got a very heavily senior laden roster with a veteran redshirt quarterback who's going to go pro. He's going to be probably, if not a first round pick, he's probably going to be a low first round pick, at worst a high second round pick. He's going to have to start rebuilding the team next year. He's going to have. This is the next year. This year was the reload year. And it was all about getting back to the title game. That's why guys like Corum didn't turn pro. The next year, all these guys are going to be gone. It's going to be a rebuilding thing. The Big Ten's going to be a lot tougher when you throw in USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. Hell, they play Washington next October. So I don't see the Big Ten is going to be a completely different animal next year. The team is going to be a completely different animal next year. I could obviously see him saying, I did my job. Even if they lose next week, he's going to think, I did my job. I made Michigan relevant on a national stage again to where, as Greg said, they are now elite. I've done my job. Mission accomplished. I'm going back to the NFL. I want to win a Super Bowl. I could easily see that happening no matter what happens next Monday night. It'll be fascinating to watch, and in a lot of ways it would be kind of sad because he's been awesome for Michigan. Even when people were down on Jim Harbaugh, guys, he was still winning 10 games a year. The only bad year we had was the COVID year, and I just throw that right out the window because freaking Indiana won the damn Big Ten that year.
Right.
So you throw that year out, which you should. He's been a consistent 10-win-a-year coach. That's better than Bo Schembechler. That's better than Lloyd Carr. No, that's like Fielding Yost kind of stuff. So, Michigan will take a downturn because I don't know about you guys, but I would believe Sharon Moore if he does leave. If Harbaugh leaves, he's probably the head coach in waiting, the current offensive coordinator. So that's the other thing. That's the other thing I would bet, that Harbaugh thinks I have it set up to have one of my second in command take this team over, set to go. I have the heir apparent. Now is the time to go. And as Greg says, they can only go down from here. And they probably will. I mean, they'll still be a good team next year. I don't see them winning. I don't see them they could probably make the playoff, but I don't see them, it's going to be a struggle to get to 10 games just because of the schedule and how things change and the roster changes. So it's going to be fun to watch to see what happens. But if I'm a betting man, I'm betting Jim Harbaugh is gone. He's done his job.
Yeah, I don't
disagree. Now I'm out of breath for all that after me being a windbag there for a few minutes. All right.
That's all right.
Well, before we move on to a couple other topics, we'll wrap things up. one of the New Year's Six games was the Orange Bowl, guys. And as Nick mentioned earlier, alluded to, Florida State got snubbed. Undefeated Florida State got snubbed out of the college playoff in exchange. Alabama, the one loss Alabama got taken over them. So the Florida State ended up playing Georgia in essentially a meaningless Orange Bowl. The FSU roster proceeded to be decimated by opt-outs. They lost their top 2 quarterbacks, their top 2 running backs, their top 2 wide receivers, a starting tight end, 3 starting defensive linemen, 2 starting linebackers, and 3 starting defensive backs. Ultimately, when the Seminoles lined up against the Bulldogs, they had a third of their scholarship roster players opt out of the game. Ultimately, and then Georgia just absolutely destroyed them 60-3. And post game, Kirby Smart, who he's an elite head coach. He's won national titles. He said people need to see what happened tonight and they need to fix this. It needs to be fixed. It's unfortunate that they, speaking of Florida State, who have a good football team and a good football program, are in the position they're in. And then he went on about the bowl games. There are still going to be bowl games outside of the playoff games. People have got to decide what they want and what we really want to get out of it, because it's unfortunate for the kids on that sideline that had to play but didn't have the full arsenal of a roster. And it affected this game 100%. So, and they have to factor in as well the transfer portal, because kids have to be enrolled for next semester. The transfer portal is open right now in the middle of bowl season. So you have like Ohio State lost their starting quarterback to the transfer portal. So they had to play their second stringer and they're lost to Missouri. So this is one of those things where, and then who knows how it's going to change when they go to the 10-team, probably the 12-team playoff next year. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see. I don't want to say interesting. I would say it's concerning to see where we're going here, because Greg and I have talked to Coach Creighton of Eastern about the bowl games for a lot of these kids is a really big deal. Yet when you get higher up in these New Year's Six games and you have NFL caliber players opting out, it's hard to wrap. I don't know where we're going with this, because it's so screwed up between. I think the players are getting they should get everything they deserve. They should be allowed to transfer all that. But it's also screwing up the end of the season. So I don't know how they fix this, to be honest with you. Now that I'm done rambling, Nick, you have any thoughts on all this mess that was bowl season?
I think the whole bowl setup right now is a big cluster. You know what? To be honest, I can see from the side of let's let these kids play one last game, win some kind of bowl game as a last hurrah. But I also see the guys that are have their eyes set on either transfer portal or the NFL saying this bowl doesn't mean anything. Literally, it's not going to lead to a championship. It's not a playoff. It's not going to, it's not going to be something where I need to show that I'm in a pressure situation and can perform. So screw it. I don't want to blow out a knee, and then my professional prospects are shot to hell. Yeah. So, so it's not surprising. And it's funny that when this first started, the people were like, well, what would the NFL think? Oh, you're not going to join your teammates, and the NFL doesn't give a shit. That's been proven. They want to fight. They want to draft a guy that doesn't have a reconstructed knee because of the last game, right? Yeah. Not everybody can take a risk on somebody like Jameson Williams and say, okay, we got enough receivers. You're so good that we want you to get that knee in order, and then we'll work you in. So that's not always the case. What I think might be necessary, and hear me out on this crazy idea, is the bowl games are nothing but marketing tools for the companies that sponsor them. That's all they are.
Yeah, like the Pop-Tart Bowl went viral when that game was
I don't know what the hell that was. I just kind of, I remember many years ago when Brady Hoke was Michigan's coach, and Michigan earned its way into the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, and people were saying, like, what the fuck is this? And but Brady Hoke was saying, oh yeah, we're proud to be in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl. You know, we're honored to be, like, seriously. But
yeah,
like those are marketing
like New Year's
tools.
Day. Yeah, like New Year's Day was the Relaquest Bowl. I had to look it up and see which bowl that was, and I think it was the Citrus Bowl. But
what was it?
I had no. I think it was the old Citrus Bowl. They were
now. No, what's the new name?
No, it was the Outback. It was the Outback Bowl. That's what it was. Which I have no idea what the Outback Bowl used to be. Now, remember the days when bowls, they were like, the Gator Bowl, the sugar, the Blue Bonnet Bowl,
Peach Bowl.
Yeah. They didn't constantly change sponsors to where is this a good bowl or not? Because I don't know anymore. The Peach Bowl.
It's like, it's meaningless. It's really just, December marketing season.
Yeah, did you look at the stands? I don't know if you watched this, at least I didn't really sit down and watch the games, but I had them on in the background. And all the early New Year's Six games, and these are considered top tier bowl games. They look maybe half full at best. Maybe being generous, 3/4 full. But as you said, Nick, these are essentially glorified exhibition games that really don't change anything. So why should the fans feel the same way when it comes to it? All these bowl games except for the playoff games, is content for ESPN. That's all they are at this. Because people watch.
That's right, and you're going to give the good bowl games to alumni that travel well. Like I see like the Michigan alumni. Bowl game packages, and if you're going to the nothing, whatever the old expression was, some flea bag bowl, right?
The flea bag bowl, yes.
It's like several $1,000s a person for these packages.
Yeah.
So people are looking to make tons and tons of money over a game that doesn't mean anything, which I will never understand. I'd rather have my own bathroom and my own TV. And my own fridge. It's a lot cheaper that way.
Yeah, and then
and Greg here, airport security. So.
Yeah, there you go. And Greg here is a resident Group of 5 guy, being the Huron, as I got that correct this time. Where you're the team, the team that you rooted for in school, the team that is they are the type that goes to these, as Nick called them, flea bag bowls. But it really is for them a big deal.
Of course it is. And even these teams that are in the top 5 in the rankings not everybody's a starter. They're still we were just talking about Blake Corum a little while ago, whether or not he's got an NFL career or not. There are a lot of players that are in that Blake Corum and below, the next step below, who will never be drafted, won't even be NFL undrafted free agents, that will not see as so much as a mini camp in the NFL. That this is it. This is their last hurrah. I'm sure those kids that played in that 60-3 thumping for Florida State, it was a bad experience for the final score goes, but they can say, thanks to these other guys opting out, that they got a chance to play in a bowl game that they probably would never have had a chance to play in otherwise. I'm kind of glad in a way that that 60-3 thing happened, because sometimes it takes something to the extreme like that to really lay bare some of the problems that are some of the farce, how farcical this whole thing really is. Now, the other thing too, Al, is that, and Nick, is that, you might, one of the things you could do, and I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but in the future, I would not be surprised to see scholarships come with some sort of a signed contract that says, almost like a professional contract. Now that we got the NIL thing going on, you might see eventually, and I'm just throwing this out there, they could be scholarships that are more like they're less scholarships than they are contracts. And part of those contracts may say that you are required to participate in any bowl games that we unless you're injured, of course. You're required to participate in any bowl game that this team qualifies for. Now, that might seem like, wow. But I wonder if we're headed toward something like that. If you're really hell-bent on getting these kids, and I don't blame them one bit, by the way, for opting out. I really don't. But if you want to get them to play in these games, that might be the only way to do it, is to somehow bind them contractually to play in these games. And then now and if you're doing that, then you're heading toward, which is I'm all for, one step toward paying the players. Now that's a whole ball of wax. We can get into another time. But on the meanwhile, I'm kind of glad this happened, because this just shows the ridiculousness that the NCAA has gotten themselves into by trying to pretend to be still this college amateur, pristine, rah thing, when it's not at all. He is dead on when he says that it's about marketing. You mentioned Al, a couple of bowl games that you didn't know what they were for, but at least now you've heard their names. It makes you maybe want to go to Google and Google their names and see what they do.
Yeah.
I will tell you, Greg, with that, I was thinking about that. Do you put something in a contract, like a scholarship contract? Right. I would say that's still forcing you into a broken system.
Yeah, it's that's true.
Why are they playing these bowl games? They mean nothing in and of themselves. Right. What I think, and this was my crazy idea, I was thinking is, how about having them mean something? Each one is a playoff. Each bowl is a playoff game, and the sponsor is the, who knows? One day it'll happen. It'll be the Pornhub Bowl, versus the winner of the Blue Bonnet Bowl, for the championship. So you're kind of, have this system where, like with Michigan now, they won the Rose Bowl. The Huskies won, what is it, the Sugar Bowl? I can't remember which one they won.
Sugar Bowl. Now. They won the Sugar Bowl.
I think it was a Sugar Bowl. And now they're going to go to the Cotton Bowl? Is that the one?
I believe so. It's a playoff. Yeah, they're playing in Houston. It must be the Cotton Bowl. Yeah.
It's a playoff. They're playing for something. So why not create a system? Now they're adding in more playoff teams next year, which I think is a necessary idea. But you have like 1 million bowl games nowadays. And what is half of this shit? So maybe you have like a two-part system in it, because I think the NCAA was talking about like tier 1 and tier 2 teams, something of that sort. You have a series of bowls that are for the tier 1 teams. You have a series of bowls that are for the tier 2 teams, but they win a championship. Hell, basketball has, the March Madness Final Four and all that other stuff. And they also have the NIT. In both cases, those teams are winning a championship. And if for some reason you lose one of the bowl games in a playoff, you're done. But you are playing for a championship, and that's what these teams want to play for. They don't want to play for the quick lane championship. But a tier 2 NCAA, whatever, might mean something.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, NIT, the not invited tournament. And we all know what you're not invited to when you get in the NIT. So but it's I think like the Duke's Mayo Bowl and the Pop-Tart Bowl, I think they got it right in that they just steered into the ridiculousness of the whole damn thing and just wanted to go viral. With all the mayo, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, with the mayo dump on the coach, and all kinds of mayo stuff going on around the game. And then the Pop-Tart Bowl was just insane with the edible Pop-Tart at the end of the game. It was I think that's
someone go eat the mascot.
Ate the mascot at the end of the game. That's exactly, the winner got to eat the mascot. And so you could just imagine all the Christ memes and things like that came out of all of this. But regardless of all that, there is I think we just had this. I think the Kirby Smart stuff might fix itself somewhat with the expanded playoff, which means you're going to have 12 teams that are going to get in there. But it's still going to be an issue with some big-time teams that don't make the playoff and end up in the ReliaQuest Bowl. And you're still going to have I guess at this point, I don't know how you fix it. And one thing I did notice during all these bowl games I did happen to catch, every time they showed a bowl game official, it was always an old white guy in a gaudy blazer. Is that like a rule of whoever is in charge of these bowls is always an old white guy and he's wearing like a yellow or a bright orange or a purple blazer or something like that? It's ridiculous. I was like, oh my God. The bowl system's all broken.
What you might also see is you might also see coaches come to some sort of a compromise with some of these players who are thinking about opting out, and treat these games like NFL coaches treat preseason games, which is like, if you give me the give me the first half, I'll play in the first half. You'll sit in the second, or give me the first quarters. I know that kind of sounds. All these things we're talking about sound crazy, but that's where we've come. That's how far. Nick mentioned a broken system, and it is. But in order to fix a broken system, which I don't even know if you can fix, in order to fix a broken system, you have to come up with some pretty cockamamie ideas sometimes to try to please everybody. But you're right, the playoffs should help a little bit. Yeah. But if these kids don't want to play in even a playoff scenario, they're not going to play.
Yeah.
You know, I think they're more willing to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think they're more willing to play if there's like a championship involved.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Than if it's just this.
Yeah.
Sort of isolated single game that has a name of a company you've never heard of or don't care about.
Right.
And it's like, and nobody's going to show up because there's nothing at stake after that bowl game.
You know, Al made a good point about some of these. Al made a good point about some of these. The attend and I'll admit it. Eastern Michigan has played before paltry attendance.
Yeah. And what bowl were they in this year?
I can't remember.
What says volumes right there.
Yeah, right. But what I'm saying is that I don't know where the money comes from, because it's not the gate. It can't be the gate because some of these yes, clearly.
Yeah.
Because and we've talked, Al, also to Coach about why does the MAC play all these Tuesday and Wednesday night games? Well, because nobody else is playing on Tuesday and Wednesday, so they could be the only game in town on television.
Exactly.
They don't care if they get 6,000 fans in the stands.
No, because they're getting money from TV. Yeah.
Right. Any money they get from the gate is gravy compared to what they would get from simply being on television.
Exactly. All right, let's hit the home stretch here. Let's talk a little bit of Pistons basketball. We'll kind of set the stage for when Siddy comes back on the show. Because when we can talk about the Pistons setting a single season record for consecutive losses. They finally did set it. Thursday night, the Pistons lost in overtime to the Celtics 128-122, setting a new NBA single season record of 28 consecutive losses. They finally snapped that streak Saturday night, beating the Raptors 129-127. But they started a new one on New Year's Day. Apparently it was. I didn't watch it at all. I mean, how many people did on New Year's Day between either being in recovery or watching football? But the Pistons lost an ugly game to the Rockets, getting blown out 136-113. It was a loss the beat writers are calling one of the worst, if not the worst, of the season. That's how bad the second half was. So the Pistons are now 3-30 and tracking to be the worst team in NBA history. More importantly, though, Tom Gores, the owner, after the 25th loss, and it's interesting, he did this on a Friday night on the 23rd of December before a holiday weekend, after a night where they had lost in LCA, the loudest cheer at Little Caesars was "Sell the team" during the loss. Gores spoke to the beat writers via a video call, and he went on about being disappointed. He wasn't going to sell the team. He says they're all working together to figure things out. I remember he mentioned, we're 2 weeks ahead of you guys in our plan. We know what we're going to do. And he mentioned there's going to be changes, but they're very non-specific. That, we don't know if he's talking about trades. Doesn't know if we're talking about firing people. We have no idea. He's probably just talking out his ass for all we know. But there was one specific quote that really got everybody's attention for the wrong reason. And this is what he said, guys. Other than winning, and we should win some more games, we do everything to bring the best to Detroit. And as you might guess, saying that we do everything right except win did not go over very well with anybody. So, Greg, I'll let you speak on this about Tom Gores really came off kind of clueless, if you ask me, about this whole losing streak and the broken team and how this rebuild looks like it's completely falling apart.
You know, a couple weeks ago, I said, I'm not sure it was the last show or the show before that, and I had just come out with a piece about why won't Tom Gores or Troy Weaver talk, and I said, I admitted that on the one hand, you want them to say something. I also said that you may not care what they have to say, and it's true. He was not. Yeah, he was not. He was almost disdainful of that. You know, they asked him about the chanting of sell the team, and I didn't care for the tone of his answer. I thought it came off disdainful, and I thought it was, you know, he was talking a lot about what they've done in the community, as if it's one or the other. Like, you can't win and be good in the community. You can either choose guys. You want us to win, you want us to be good in the community, and he was kind of putting it that way, like, you know, well, basketball. He literally said, basketball aside, we've done a lot of good things. Fans, I'm sorry, they don't. I mean, it's great. It's great if your team is a good social corporate citizen. That's true. That's good. But they really don't care about that. They care about winning or this is a country of winning and losing. There's no tolerance in the United States of America for losers. There just isn't. Now, you may say that that's a good thing or a bad thing. There isn't any tolerance for losing in this country. And in the world of sports, it's almost do whatever you can to win. And I don't think that the fans are all that jazzed. I mean, it's great that they give money to the city. That's great. Yeah. But you can give money to the city and still be a good team. I mean, he portrayed it as if you have your choice, guys. Do you want us to win? Or do you want us to be good in the community? And I that was the first thing he said that I didn't like. And the other thing is he's got this ability, and Nick hopefully will agree with this, of just saying a lot and not of speaking a lot of words, but not really saying anything of substance. You know, I read that word salad that he the thing and here's the indictment, and I said this on Twitter. The problem with that interview that he gave that you're talking about, Al, is that if you read just the words and you don't know what the context is, you don't know if that interview was conducted in July or now. And that's a problem. That is a big problem, because if you can't determine when these words were said, then there's something wrong with the words, and there's something wrong with the sincerity and the commitment of him. And so the fact that you can go this long and not do something to improve the product on the court is just, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick. What's it's the Gores did not, especially when you do this on Friday night before Christmas Eve. This is like you're doing this just to get it done and out of the way, and you hope it goes away over the weekend. Yeah, exactly. A news.
Yeah. Well, he also, I think he did the interview with a select group of beat writers.
There was no columnist or anything like that involved, right?
So there's that. As far as I have a quote. That's my response to all his stupid, well, we do well with the community, even though we don't win shit. And my quote comes from none other than Don Cherry, where in response to a question, I forget the exact question, but Don Cherry's response was, yeah, and if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle.
Right.
Like big,
right?
What it's irrelevant,
right?
And the only reason the Pistons do anything with the community is for their marketing purposes. So don't give me any of that shit that they're being, altruistic in any way. Bullshit.
Right.
But I'm not going to watch them just to see what they do for the community. Fuck that. I'm watching them to see. I'm watching a basketball game.
Right.
That's why they exist, to play basketball and to try and win a basketball game. Gores is not going to sell the team. Duh. He's an equity partner person. He owns things to.
He's a Gordon Gekko type, pure and simple.
To bring in profits. That's what. That's how he made his money.
How many owners, Nick? How many owners of sports franchises sell anyway? Period. You can go years and years in any given sport between franchises being sold. owners of sports franchises never sell. I mean, they will on occasion.
Yeah, usually it's usually due to either they run into some sort of money issue or they die and the family wants to get rid of the team.
Kansas City Chiefs have been under the Hunt family since their inception. And the Buffalo Bills have been under the Wilson family since their inception. The Bengals have been in the Brown family for 1 million years. The Lions have been with the Ford family for 60 some odd years. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't. You're absolutely right.
It doesn't.
It's it's an amazing investment if you can get into it.
If they're going to sell, it's not going to be because they were shamed into selling. I can tell you that.
No,
it's not going to work.
No, and it's really, I do believe that the team will function based on the person at the top. With William Clay Ford, what you got, but he was in charge ultimately, and he put the people in the front office to run that team, and you got the same old Lions. You with Goris, you see what you're getting. How many years? 10 years into it, you see what you've got. He's an idiot when it comes to pricking his front office. He meddles with hiring the coach. And you have a 3-30 team. I don't know what at this point. And is it getting better? No. And so that's all ridiculous. And he's like as tone deaf as Chris Ilitch was when the Tigers were flaming out, and he was happy with the progress a couple years back.
Right.
I mean, everybody went apeshit when that happened. Just like totally went nuts. I think also the fact that he sees Monty Williams still as a smart coach really just makes my head numb. I just like, I don't know what to think of it. It's like you watch those games and you can see, you'll say, what the hell is he doing? What the hell is the coach doing? Literally, he also made mention, Nick Gores did, of he said that he and Monty talk about rotations. That's insane.
That's bad. That's bad.
That's insane.
If it's just Monty informing Gores of the logic he's using, that's one thing.
Right.
But if it's a discussion on like, hey, Mr. Owner, what should we do? Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Like, are you out of your fucking mind? You're paying this guy $13 million a year.
Right.
And you're getting the advice of a moron owner. Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
I actually have been watching of all the Detroit sports teams. I've been watching the Pistons the most, and I get on my soapbox. It really fucking pisses me off to watch these guys. That game yesterday with Houston, holy, Jesus H. Christ. They were down, I think, by 4 at halftime.
Yeah.
Monty puts in a second unit consisting of Killian Hayes, sometimes Isaiah Livers, Alec Burke, James Wiseman, and Asar Thompson. These guys can't hit water if they fell out of a fucking boat, with maybe the occasional exception of Burke. Isaiah Livers, if that guy hits why is he shooting? Look up his 3-point percentages. They're abysmal. There's sometimes he's making, he's 1 in 8. Why is he allowed to make 8 3-point attempts in a game? He's horrible.
Yeah.
But he puts in that whole unit at 1 minute. They're not 4 points down. They're 17 points down. A few minutes later, they're 36 points down. That third quarter was 45-27. So for every 2 points, Houston scored. The The Pistons had 1 point. It's stupid basketball. Yeah. It's stupid basketball. And I was critical of Siddy when he said he liked Dwayne Casey, because I know the Pistons were struggling kind of similarly last year. There were grumblings it would be this bad, but so you take roughly the same roster, even though they're now a little more experienced, and you give it to Monty Williams, and what a shit show you have. He's a horrible head coach. Horrible. So I have nothing.
Tell us what you really think.
I could go on for so long. It's just disgusting to watch. So anyway.
Hey, Merry Christmas. Yeah.
You asked, so
yeah. No, I have no arguments. If anything, Monty looks like a complete mismatch with this roster. You know, between that and the lack of shooters, but yeah, that's the main thing. What Gorse? Why is the coach even speaking to Gorse? He should be talking to the GM. Let the GM filter all that stuff to the owner. That makes no sense at all.
Because the coach was being picked by the owner. That's who the owner wanted. The GM
it'd be like Dan Campbell letting Sheila know he's gonna make a lineup change. You know, and I can't believe we're looking at Sheila Hamp as a model owner, but she's proven to be. She just hires people, gets the hell out of the way, and lets them do their thing. You know, so who knew it was going to take her to become all of a sudden be the best owner in town, between clueless Gores and Chris Ilitch, being the who looks like he just Chris Ilitch. I don't even get going on him. I think he comes off as so clueless sometimes, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. So, oh God, I don't know what else to say about the Pistons. I think Nick pretty much summed it up. It's a shit show from the. The roster is mismatched. The coach doesn't look like he wants to be there or know what he wants to do with this team. The GM has a fetish for centers, and the owner, is essentially Gordon Gekko, but worse. So the Pistons are an absolute mess right now, and it's hard to see them winning. But they have to win 6-7 more games to not break the all-time record. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see where those wins are going to come from, the way that team is playing right now.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I think it's a good time to get the hell out of here. We're all still recovering from the holidays, and we have to get ready for for playoff football over the next couple weeks. We have a lot of it. We'll have a lot to talk about. So I guess with that means it's time for our jerk of the week. Nick, who's your jerk?
I'm going to say 2 words, and I think you'll know where this comes from already. Tom Gores.
Oh, now he's going to go off on some more. Can't wait. All right.
Well, I was debating between him and Monty, and Monty's option 1B. So Troy Weaver is just kind of like about as meaningful as an asshole with taste buds. So I'm going with Gores, though. That was stupid what he had to say.
Yeah, he would have been better off not saying a word. And still, why Troy Weaver hasn't shown his head is beyond me. So I would throw him in there too. So Nick, good call on that. Your jerk of the week. Greg, who's your jerk?
I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers, and there's so many reasons you could go with Aaron Rodgers, but the most recent one is he was on Pat McAfee's show. Yeah. And when people go on Pat McAfee's show, for some reason, sometimes they lose control of their senses. And he did that, and Rodgers did, and he basically more than inferred that Jimmy Kimmel was going to be on this Epstein list that everybody keeps talking about, this infamous list of supposed sexual deviants that the Epstein Island and so forth. And Jimmy Kimmel, to his credit, was not having it. And he basically said, because Rodgers made some sort of a glib comment about, he said, a lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that the list doesn't come out. Well, Jimmy Kimmel did not have anything. He was not going to have that at all. And Kimmel is threatening legal action. Good for him, against Aaron Rodgers. He said, "You put my family in danger when you say things like that. You can't just, spout off bullshit like that. And in the name of having fun, because these people that listen to the Aaron Rodgers of the world take that stuff seriously. And you can't just say things like this. So you're not going to find me in any list, number one. And number two, you're putting my family in danger when you say stuff like that. That's so he's threatening Kimmel is threatening legal action against Aaron Rodgers, and good for him, because Aaron Rodgers is, I think we can all agree, is not a good guy. And this just is another black mark, I think, against him. I know you're trying to be funny. You're on McAfee makes you feel kind of loosey goosey, but you can't say that kind of stuff. In this day and age, when people are going to take it seriously, there are enough jobs out there they're going to take that stuff seriously and hang on. They love Rodgers for being the anti-vax guy and everything. And so it's reckless and it's foolish and good for Jimmy Kimmel for calling him out on it.
Yeah, no complaints there.
Right.
All right, my jerk of the week. I'm going to go with Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper, who, yes, because let's when we can go back to like it looks like he was the driving force for the Carolina Panthers not drafting C.J. Stroud and taking the worst of the two rookie quarterbacks. It's looking like, and so he's coming off as a Tom Gorse type of owner. But the latest thing he pulled off is I don't know if he got drunk in the owner's booth last night, but yesterday, but apparently he had into an argument with fans in the stands and threw his drink at the fans in the stands. This is an owner doing this. You know, this is one of those things where how dumb can you be? You're a very rich man. Only thing that can happen when you start getting into it with fans in the stands is bad shit. I can see right now someone calling a lawyer today saying, "I got hit by that drink and now I'm blind" or something. The thing is, Tepper is very Gores-like in how he runs the team. He wants to be involved in all the decisions. He seems to have a hot temper. And essentially, the Carolina Panthers are reflecting his skills because they have the worst record in football, yet they won't have the first-round draft pick because they traded that to the Bears, who would now own their draft pick next year. So my jerk of the week is David Tepper for being a brain-dead millionaire who got into it with fans and threw a drink at him yesterday. And I hope, I bet you the NFL is probably more upset about that than they are about the refereeing snafu on Saturday night.
Right.
Yeah. All right. With that, I think it's time to call it a podcast. So, Greg, if you could, why don't you get out all the thank yous, what we may have coming up, and the social media, things like that.
Absolutely. Trying to get Eastern Michigan football coach Chris Creighton on the program. We'll keep you abreast on that. We do know we will have Siddy Hall with us on January the 30th. We'll talk Pistons with Siddy. Follow us on Twitter at The Knee Jerks. Follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno, and please subscribe to my Substack. It's simply gregeno.substack.com. If you do so, while it's free, you will get I'll be in your inbox every Monday and with new content. So please do that if you would. Want to thank my lovely wife Sharon for putting up with this nonsense for every other week, and thank you guys for making Tuesday nights so gosh darn fun.
Yeah, and Greg, I want to thank you this week with your column that it didn't terrify me with the headline like the last one did, where you said your Charlie Sanders headline. So I'm like, what? I'm still laughing about that. Like, what do you mean he's not dead? All right, so Nick, Nick, where can the listeners find you online?
Well, the only real place I'm on social media is Twitter. You can see my handle right here and on the recording. It's at Nick Milanovich. I like talking about Detroit sports and a few other things with fellow Detroit sports fans, Michigan fans. Hell, I'll even do Michigan State fans, but not OSU. Sorry. Kidding. I like to do it all in clean fun, benign trash talk. I will warn you, as you may have already noticed, that I'm kind of on a warpath with the Pistons because it's really pissing me off. So, but other than that, yeah, that's where you can find me. And I'm usually on there whether I should be or not. So.
All right. And I just want to, first off, I dipped my toe back into social media. I have a Blue Sky account. That's Albeat, ALBEAT at Blue Sky. So if you want to get an invite for that, you can look me up there. I'm just kind of feeling around. It's still kind of a barren. I won't call it a barren wasteland, but it's like the Great Plains. There's still not a lot going on there yet, but it's much less anger-inducing than Twitter can be if you look in the wrong spaces of Twitter, or probably X, regardless of all that. Anyway, if you want to listen to the show, we're available at all the usual places where you can find podcasts. You can listen, as they say, like, share, subscribe. You can find us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer, Radio Public. TheKneeJerks.net is our homepage. You'll find all the links to social media. You'll find the links to Greg's Substack. You'll find links to things we talk about. And you can also download the show directly from there and do what you will with the MP3 you get. And I think that about covers it. Also, if you are kind of following, if you are a regular of us, we're experimenting here. This is Greg discovered a service called StreamYard. So we're trying that when it comes to video. If this works out, we kind of like how it works. We may end up doing a live stream of the podcast where it will go directly to YouTube. We'll see where all that goes. But right now, we'll see how it goes after the fact, after I download and edit everything. But we may be doing some changes as to how we actually broadcast the show. We'll still do the audio, but I have, how we do the audio. That won't change, but we're experimenting as to how we handle the video portion of the show. So we might be off Skype for good. Fingers crossed. So with that, let's get the hell out of here because I could use a drink. And I got to edit the show, and hell, it's dinner time for Nick, and Greg's probably got to go to bed because he's old. So, no, he's got to get right to work and getting up and figure out our next birthday game question, So, and maybe even another pun for our next show. All right, with that, let's get the hell out of here. So let's call it a night. So until this time, 2 weeks from now, when we'll probably have lots of football to talk about, playoff football to talk about. This is Al Beaton saying good night. No, what do I used to say? I say good evening, good luck, and aloha. Along with Nick Milanovich.
Happy New Year and ciao, everybody.
And Greg Eno.
Ciao, Italy. We'll see you in 2 weeks.